Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys have had a great Monday out there. Hopefully, most of you had the day off for Labor Day, but we're about to move into a new day tomorrow. It being Tuesday, I'm sure most head back to work. But I got you an update on the Tropics this evening. We're going to talk about a few things. It still looks pretty active out there. Earl is probably going to become a hurricane as early as this time tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. We're going to take a look at Earl, where it could potentially head. Does Bermuda need to worry? We're going to give you the latest information on that. Then we're going to give you some updated information on what's coming after Earl. We're not going to talk about Danielle much because Danielle's not really bothering anybody. Just a Category 1 hurricane in the far northern areas of the Atlantic. But there's a couple areas we need to watch after Earl that could really cruise up. And I have a feeling we could take maybe 2 to as much as 3 names pretty quickly. In the hurricane list, I think the next name is Fiona. Hopefully I said that right. Then after that, it's Gaston, and then Hermine. But we could roll through some names pretty quickly, so we're going to break that down for y'all. Then we're going to give an update on, is there any kind of cold fronts in the future? I've had a lot of questions on Facebook and Twitter about that. Mitch, when is it going to actually feel like fall, especially for us in the South? In fact, you know, I didn't really I had some things to do this weekend, and today was the last day to do it, and I didn't really get them done, and I just ended up taking about a 2-hour nap, so it was just so hot and humid outside. I just didn't really feel like messing with anything. It is Labor Day, so I just took a break. But if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way. If you ever thought about joining my channel, it's just a great way to support what I do monthly. I got 18 incredible people who do that for me monthly. I'm trying to get to 20 by the end of this month, September, so 2 more members. So if you ever thought about doing it, that would be awesome. Hit me up on my social media links. It's a great way to support what I do. And of course, if you guys got anything that I can pray over, please put it in the comments below. I certainly appreciate the prayers you guys provided with my plumbing issues. Long story short, they came this morning, and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. No point in going deep into the details, but God's good, and it's going to be taken care of. So I really appreciate the prayers for that. But here we go. Taking a look at basically most of the U.S. and the Atlantic Basin here. This is Earl. Earl's chilling out there. We'll get a little bit closer on Earl here in a second. This is Danielle, and this is what's likely going to be an invest as early as the next couple updates. So this will likely be dubbed that, but there's about a 50% chance this develop in the next 5 days. This might get upgraded again here at the 8 p.m. update here in about 45 minutes. So we'll watch that. And then there's another wave we're going to watch that's still over North Africa. So I do think we're going to have a heightened period of activity that comes off North Africa. But will they develop? Will they turn out to sea? That's a big question. So let's look a little bit closer look at Tropical Storm Earl. The sun is setting on Earl. That's why the screen gets black. But what you'll see here is you got some big time what we call hot towers going up. Just think of that as intense convection right here. You got a low level circulation around it. You see these lower clouds right here flying below it. We are not quite sure, based off what we know, if this convection is vertically stacked. It's looking like it isn't vertically stacked, meaning is the most intense convection right over the heart and soul of the system, which is the low-level circulation. I think it's still dealing, in fact it is, still dealing with some shear. So it's still affecting this storm somewhat, or if it wasn't, you would probably have some quick intensification with this. That's why they're saying that it might not be a hurricane until maybe as far as Wednesday. But I think this could potentially be a hurricane as early as tomorrow. So we'll watch. But for now, there was hurricane hunters that went in here, and they only went through this part of the storm right here. Did not find really intense winds with Earl. But of course, they did not fly through the most intense convection right here, which is, of course, where you would see the stronger wind gusts. But Earl is doing pretty good. It's heading due north now. So we'll take a look at the path of Earl here in a second. But right now, per the 2 p.m. update, like I said, another one comes out in about 45 minutes. You have a 50% chance of this area of interest to develop. It looks like this is going to head out to sea. It's going to find a weakness in the North Atlantic, and the upper levels in the environmental, just the environmental factors aloft is going to provide a weakness here for this to head out to sea. So we'll see if this gets bumped up to a 60% chance. But this has actually gained some traction on model guidance, showing that this could actually be a named storm. This could be Fiona. So we'll watch for this. But Earl's right here, a 65 mile per hour storm. I think they just found a 996 millibar low pressure with the latest flight. So it tells you that Earl is strengthening somewhat. The lower that number goes, it tells us that the strengthening. Danielle will likely weaken. Might be a tropical storm by the time we get to around this time tomorrow, but it's still an 85-mile-per-hour storm. And then moving north-northeast at about 9 miles per hour. But Earl is now moving north at about 6 miles per hour. So what is Earl going to do? The good news is a lot of model guidance and ensembles came in agreement that, at least for today, that this might scoot east enough of Bermuda to not really devastate Bermuda or anything like that. It never was really looking like it was. Some models flirted with the idea. But this is still predicted to be a major hurricane as early as Thursday evening, so Friday morning. So we'll watch this. But your Bermuda no longer right now in the cone of uncertainty, but this could shift back east. And I'm about to show you some model runs that gets Earl very close to Bermuda still, but forecast to become a hurricane as early as maybe tomorrow night. So we'll watch for that. But Earl is likely going to enter a much favorable environment once it gets close to Bermuda. It's going to interact with the jet stream up here as it gets picked up and really provide an outflow and really provide an enhanced period of development, most likely. So we'll watch for that. So we're going to start this for Wednesday morning, Bermuda right here. So this is for around the next about 36 hours from now. It's going to say that it's a 984 millibar low pressure. That would be a Category 1 hurricane, maybe pushing Category 2. So here it goes. It's moving very slow. It's strengthening, but I think that it could potentially weaken a little bit in this area. But I think it really starts to gain some consistent strengthening once it gets east of Bermuda. But the latest Euro, as we're getting into Thursday morning, has a pretty intense hurricane, probably Category 2, south of Bermuda at this point. And it looks like it might be heading towards Bermuda, and then it starts to head northeast. Thankfully, Bermuda right here. And this might provide some gusty winds. It's definitely going to provide some gigantic wave swells, certainly for Bermuda. Definitely going to be intense surf, but definitely not close enough to really impact it severely at all. But it has it passing southeast of Bermuda, then east of Bermuda is around a 960-ish millibar storm. This would be, pushing a Category 3 hurricane, which is considered a major hurricane. And then it can continue to intense as it interacts with the jet stream up here and provides a more favorable environment as it gets pushed away very quickly as a major hurricane way out here. So we'll watch for this. But the good news is, on the latest Euro, it does not look like it's going to affect. Now, if we keep this run going, there's a little signature maybe in the Gulf of Mexico as we get pretty far out. We need to watch the Gulf of Mexico about 8 to 10 days out, but in general, nothing too concerned to worry about. Latest GFS, same thing. We'll start this Wednesday morning. A little bit quicker with this system. Heck, by the time we get into Friday morning, the GFS wants this to be well east of Bermuda as a 950 millibar low pressure that is pushing, probably pushing closer to a Category 4 hurricane, but probably still a Category 3 if this was to happen. And again, it's a little bit closer than the Euro to Bermuda, but certainly no any kind of devastating impacts or anything like that. So that's the good news. So that moves on out. And like I said, we got to watch the Gulf of Mexico at around day 7 to 10, I would say. I think there'll be some energy flying around here. And of course, the latest GFS doesn't really show anything, so that's good. So nothing out there. But we look at the icon. The icon is what was showing that doomsday scenario for Bermuda. What does it show now for Bermuda? And stick with me. We're going to talk about things besides Earl too, by the way. Watch out. The icon wants to spin up a little quick low pressure in the northern Gulf of Mexico, but the icon necessarily isn't the most reliable model in general. But even the icon scoots this well east and then southeast and east of Bermuda. So that's good. That's good news. So moving forward here, really, what the trend has been for today is that, and I'm just going to show you the Euro, is that here's Earl, and watch what happens here. Earl starts to interact with the jet stream right into here. And then there's like a cutoff low feature. But the system is strong enough to where it's not influenced and kind of yanked around, almost yanked back west by this cutoff low feature. So it kind of runs through it and interacts with it, and then it moves up right along. It's such a strong storm that it doesn't really get yanked west much at all. Now this ridging tries to build on top, but at this point, it's probably going to weaken because it gets so far north and then it's a non-story. But what's interesting is the European still has this cut-off low right here and almost tries to develop this into a tropical system or something. But, we'll have to watch this. It's very interesting what it does, but I can tell you the GFS shows this little feature too. But watch what the GFS does it. So we'll keep rolling here, and the GFS starts to interact with this little cut-off low. And watch it get yanked back. Watch this. See how it gets yanked back west a little bit and flirts with the idea of affecting Newfoundland? And then it kind of gets pulled back south, and then it kind of fizzles apart. So it's very interesting. The cutoff low is still trying to influence this system, even with a strong system on the GFS. So it's something we need to watch. I don't think it's a big deal, but I still think you need to pay attention to this if you're in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, for example, and definitely, certainly in Bermuda in the more short to medium term. So let's see what happens with the latest Euro. Keep your eyes kind of down here also. This is Earl, and then let's see what happens. Okay, so Earl's heading on out. Here comes what could be Fiona. Moving through, we'll see. At this point, it's only 1,008 millibar low pressure as we're moving into this Wednesday afternoon. But you notice there's some slight strengthening. This is ridging, so there's a weakness right here, the same weakness that Earl was sneaking through. But this begins to move northeast, and right around probably Saturday afternoon, per the latest Euro, this becomes Fiona. With a 990 millibar low pressure, that's probably comfortably a tropical storm at this point. But it finds that weakness and it heads on out, and it's not a big story. You got a lot going on right here. You got what's kind of left over with Danielle. You got Earl. You got this little cutoff low feature that turns into a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure. You got what's left over of this vortice from what could be Fiona that just literally rides around this high pressure. And then you got a couple other little features. Here comes a wave right here. And then here comes this lowrider wave right here that just busts off the seams of North Africa immediately as a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure. And then by the time you get 10 days out, it's 984 millibar low pressure, which would likely be a hurricane, which would be a hurricane. Could this be Hurricane Gaston? Not sure. That's pretty far out. But you got weak ridging out here. Of course, you got ridging right here. With this sneak here and gone and head on out to sea right here, you don't have a lot of big time. You don't have a big time blocking pattern out here in the North Atlantic. That's why a lot of these systems are heading out to sea. But you're seeing consistently a lot of activity now. Where we go back a month, you really weren't. So the Atlantic continues to be pretty alive, but we're lucky that we're not getting anything that's exploding in the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. I mean, it has just been quiet. It really has. We've been lucky for Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, the Leeward Islands, Dominican Republic. It's just been very quiet. The Gulf of Mexico, we look back the last 2 years, we had Ida, and then we had Laura, and we had so many other hurricanes in 2020. So we've been lucky so far. So we look at the GFS. What does the GFS show? So GFS, you look at Earl over there, and then we look at what could be Fiona, which is our invest, but it never quite makes it. It just kind of dwindles it apart. And here comes one wave right here. Well, watch this. GFS likes the idea of this being a tropical wave, and then the GFS continues to not develop any sort of wave behind this that the European does. And the GFS did the same thing when the Euro tried to say there was going to be an intense wave come off the coast of North Africa. The GFS wasn't having it, and the GFS ended up, being right. Now, that same wave is what likely will be Fiona, but it's not near as intense as what some of the models show. So we're going to take a look at the European ensembles, but a little bit of a different wave. We're going to put it in motion for you to try to make this make a little bit more sense. So this is Earl. That's Bermuda, and this is obviously what's left of Danielle moving out. And then you got this signal down here with this wave. So we're going to start this for around Thursday afternoon. Here it goes. Here goes most of the members, thankfully, now missing Bermuda. No members plow it through Bermuda. Here comes what could be Fiona. This is a signal. Here's the ridging right here. It's pivoting around this darker color of red right here. This ridging of high pressure. Here comes another signal for a wave. This is moving through. Here comes the invest moving around high pressure. It's no longer a story. But you see how some of these L's for Earl kind of creep back west? that's that idea that maybe that cutoff low tries to, with ridging also building on top, it could get knocked west a little bit, but it's still a low probability of that. Here comes that other wave right here. We'll watch that. The signal for that isn't very high, but then the signal for the wave behind this is pretty decent. I wouldn't say high, but pretty decent. And but I can tell you, the members that do make it with this wave are, get pretty intense, and they start to take that route you don't want to see. But it's a wait and see game with this. So, and there's a little signal, very small, in the Bay of Campeche that keeps showing up. We need to see if this continues to show up. Let me tell you, if anything gets going in the Gulf of Mexico, it's rocket fuel. It is. And it's going to explode and become intense. So we don't want any kind of piece of energy to sneak into the Western Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, because it's going to be hard for it not to pop off and become an intense storm. So let's talk about something different here. These are the cold fronts. So we're looking for our cold front, right? I know I am looking forward to it. You look back to the last 2 years. Last year, I remember for the eastern U.S., for the southeast, I can speak for the southeast, we had 3 distinct cold fronts in September. And you can't really ask for anything better than that. We had one the first weekend of September, around this weekend. We had lows in the 50s. It was awesome. It was beautiful weather. And then we had another one literally about 4 or 5 days later for the second weekend of September. And then in about 10 days, we had another cold front. We actually had a nice fall in the southeast last year. And then the year before that, I think it took about 9 or 10 days into September. But then we had a nice cold front to work through. I think we had another one later in the month. So on average, I would say the southeast gets anywhere from no cold fronts to maybe 3 cold fronts. So, we're at September 5th. We're looking for our first cold front. So what I'm showing you here, these are dew points. These are not temperatures. It's the best thing to look at this time of the year. So dew points in the 60s and 70s is what you're feeling right now in the southeast. It's damp. It's wet. It's just disgusting. And I hate it personally. It's literally damp. There's a lot of rain. There's flooding issues ongoing right now across a lot of the eastern U.S. Dry air, moist air. So what we're doing here is we're watching for this dry air to break containment in response to a cold front. So we're getting into this weekend. You got a little bit of dry air intrusion trying to make it into the Mississippi Valley. Other than that, just some light dry air up here getting kind of slung in from a cutoff low that might provide some relief for the Northeast. But this is what we watch for. You see this push right here of dry air, dew points in the 40s and 50s and 60s. We watch for this to push all the way through the eastern U.S. We need a clear East Coast clearing cold front. So if we look at this on the latest GFS, for example, it looks like we got a decent push of dry air coming in about a week to 9 days. But it kind of stalls out. It stops. And you have an excellent air mass. Beautiful fall air mass about 7 to 8 to 9 days out in the Ohio Valley, the Mid-South, areas of the Deep South, Mississippi Valley, the entire Northeast. But it doesn't fully clear the Southeast. And, granted, this is, in the long range. So we really are waiting for that, really good front. So, at this point, what you do for the long range is you watch for consistent trends. We need these cold fronts to become a trend. If you back this up and you stop it right here where this cold front's coming, you look at the run before this for the lunchtime model, and look, it's not there. You got the dry air way up here. But if you look at the run before that from this morning, a nice push of dry air. The run before that, you got a push, but it's not as far south. So you're looking for some consistent trends that we can get a cold front in here. Now you look at the Euro. What does the Euro show? And we'll move it here in time. We're looking. Let's go on and fast forward this very quickly. We get all the way into this weekend. Look at this very moist air mass as we're getting into the weekend. So the thing I can tell you is, if the Euro's correct, maybe to start off this coming Friday, some hints of dry air here and there. Here in the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, but still dew points in the 50s and 60s. That's just not a true fall air mass. So you're looking here, look at this intense high-end humidity all the way up to Chicago as we're getting into the later half of next weekend, next Sunday. But look here, you get a little push of dry air. This might provide some relief for Arkansas, Dallas-Fort Worth. But when does this make it all the way to the eastern U.S.? And it never does. This is 240 hours out, 10 days out. A little bit of relief but it's not the cold front we're looking for. So I would say confidence is low right now in the next 10 days for a cold front. But confidence could increase very quickly if something like the GFS happens. So the only shot of dry air we've had so far, for late summer, early fall standards, is what happened, I think, the third weekend of August when I think the low temperature, for example, for my house hit 62 degrees in late August, which is about the best air masses you can ask for. But it's been a pretty hot and muggy start to September. And honestly, I think it's going to remain like that for at least maybe the next week for a lot of people. But there's some hints, especially if you're in the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, maybe the Mid-South. Confidence is much higher that maybe we get our first cold front in the next 7 to 10 days. We'll watch for that. So God bless all y'all. Y'all have a great into your Labor Day weekend. Hope it was great for you. And we'll talk to you again in the morning. God bless.